Alrighty.
While I'm waiting for attendees to join, I'm going to go ahead and get the timer going.
Perfect. Thank you. And I guess since this is a subcommittee meeting, I guess I have to call to order, right, Rebecca?
Yes, and we do have an item on the agenda for public comment if any attendees wish to make public comment.
Great. Okay, so we're going to call to order this Monday, June 7th meeting of the Corte Madera Town Council Subcommittee for Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee interviews. And we're going to start with item number 2 on our agenda, which is open time for public comment. So this is just an opportunity for anybody to comment on any items that are not on our agenda should they wish to. So if you are on the line and would like to comment on anything not on our agenda, please go ahead and raise your hand here via Zoom and we will bring you on the line to comment. And we'll just wait a second to make sure no hands go up. And we are not having any hands go up. So with that, we'll close public comment. That brings us to our main item for today, which is interviews of Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee applicants. Vice Mayor Casissa and I are just going to basically switch off asking the same 4 preset questions to each of our candidates here. With a time for an opening statement and closing statement by each of the candidates, and Rebecca is going to just be running the timer for us. And so I guess with that, we can go ahead and start with our first interview. If I haven't missed anything, Rebecca, so that'll be Mark Madden. Hey, Mark, good to see you there. Thanks for joining us. And so, Mark, why don't you go ahead and unmute yourself whenever you're ready, and you can have you can start your 1-minute opening statement. Rebecca's got the timer up here. And then
before he starts that, I just want to reiterate for those of you who don't know that we are having intermittent issues with our internet at Town Hall. So if you see the timer start to not progress, it's because you lost me. I will be back shortly, and I will be running it on my phone to make sure that we don't miss anything, and I'll rejoin as soon as I'm able.
Great. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Alrighty, Mark, you may take it away whenever you're ready.
I am ready. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, good afternoon to you. It's good to see you. I hope you're all healthy and as well your families. My opening statement consists of this. For the last 20 years, I have the opportunity, privilege, I guess, honor to serve our village, our town. One originally back in 2000, believe it or not, with the Telecommunications Committee, Special Committee on Telecommunications. Then I served, as you may know, on the Park and Recreation Commission, and I became the chairman of that in, I think, 2002, and then served in 2006 on the Corte Madera Task Force on the General Plan. And as you well know, since 2016, I have served on the Corte Madera Bicycle Pedestrian Advisory Committee. And just as context, you also may know that I serve on the Metropolitan Transportation Commission's Policy Advisory Committee, and I've served there since 2017. And that
well timed.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you. All right, so we're going to go through now. We're going to go through now. These are 4 preset questions that we'll be asking all the applicants for our first question, and it's 3 minutes apiece. First question, 3 minutes, is what is it about this committee that interests you?
Well, the good news for me is that I have always been a bicyclist, but I became an avid bicyclist, roughly speaking, 10 years ago when I retired. And so I spend a considerable amount of time on the highways and byways and roadways of this town, as well as all throughout Marin County, on a bicycle. The even more interesting news for you is that not only do I have a road bike and a mountain bike, but I am anxiously awaiting not 1, but 2 electric bikes for me and my wife. So I will have the experience of doing the same with electric bikes, which I believe is a different matter and a different kettle of fish. And I'm looking forward to that because, as you well know, that has become a very popular new type of vehicle. And it's one of the things, anticipating a question further on, that is drawing my interest.
Great, thank you. Our second question, and Fred, I didn't check with you. Maybe we'll just go through the closing statement after all the questions, and then we'll have an opportunity for us to ask follow-up questions. Does that sound good, Fred?
Correct.
Perfect. Okay, great, excellent. Great, so thank you, Mark. Question 2, what do you feel are the bicycle and pedestrian related challenges facing the town, both presently and in the future?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'm glad you asked. Here's my list. It's a short-term, midterm, and long-term. As you know, I think we were very successful in recommending to council the changes that we made in terms of safety and even drivability of cars on Tamalpais. And I'm very, very pleased with it over the last year and so are, I think, most people. Well, I think that what we now are required is to continue that kind of system on Paradise, all the way down to the schools. I can't think of a more crucial, you might say, arterial than that. And that would be my very short term. And by that, I mean over the next 4 years, at least within the next year to 18 months, to do something similar to that, obviously based on the specific conditions of that area. But it's heavily used. Children are very much involved, obviously, and that is number one in terms of both priority and time. The second will be similar kinds of things over the next couple of years, dealing with what was announced this very day, the prospect of about $10 billion of federal funds for greenway improvement. And some of it, I'm relatively certain, is going to devolve on Corte Madera. So I think we need to be proactive in deciding if and when that happens, how we will use the money. And that means establishing priorities that reflect bicycles and cars and kids, particularly those three things. The last thing, or the more long-term thing, is going back to what I said before, the advent of electric bikes and their use or not use or limited use in Corte Madera. And yes, I appreciate that it's probably at the very least a county-wide matter, if not a state matter. But I'm highly concerned with the speed that even my bike will have, which is about 28 miles. And there are some, I know, because I read the quote periodicals, that go up to 50 miles an hour, that people are adequately responsible for the speed and the understanding of it and their own protection with respect to helmets, lights, and things that are so important, because you get hit, as I'm sure you know, by something that's going 28 miles an hour, that can be serious. And that constitutes, you might say, my bare bones projects over the next 4 years.
Great, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Question 3, please tell us your style for dealing with disagreements in a group setting, and please provide an example if you're able to.
Well, the good news for me, I guess, because I'm old, is that I've been serving on boards and commissions literally since I'm 24 years old. My original appointment was not in California, but I was a member of the Board of Higher Education in Oregon for a number of years. And the people there, as you might guess, were considerably older than I. And while we may have had disagreements, the civility that I learned from them, and they were pros and some of the best I've ever worked with, have really carried with me over all these, I hate to say this, 45 years. So I have served on 2 commissions and boards, too numerous to mention, but that's a good example of the experience that comes working with both mature and also people who value different opinions, but never, and by the way, it's true of me, take these things personally. What you may not know is, in my professional life, I have been a lobbyist for 50 years. And guess what? You don't take things personally, and you may differ on issues as you will, but always remember, or you're always remembering, that the person who disagrees with you or may vote against you, if it comes to that, is very likely to be your ally on the next one. And that's exactly how I conduct, quote, my business.
Thank you. And then our last question for you is, what makes you stand out among the other candidates? I realize you're the first to speak today. And what special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the commission?
Well, I don't know who the other candidates are, but I wish them well. And I don't really know the answer to that, except I will say as we say in the media, the record stands by itself. I mean, that is my record, and I'm very proud of it. And I've had opportunities to work in 5 different states with respect to legislators and legislative committees and the various boards and commissions that I've enumerated both in Oregon and in California. So I'd say this, that if I was doing something really bad, I probably wouldn't have served for 45 years.
Touche. Great. Well, thank you very much. Now we'll invite you to make a 2-minute closing statement, and then we'll ask any follow-up questions we may have.
Well, in the interest of time and brevity, which are 2 things that I care a great deal about, I've enjoyed myself very much serving on this committee. I serve with very, very conscientious people who really know this business of bicycles and their relationship to pedestrians, not just bicycles, but they all ride. And, you know, in the case of one of our members had a very unfortunate accident, as I'm sure you know, which we all took cognizance of. And that's part of what is motivating me with respect to Paradise. It's a busy place and you can get hurt, and I don't want anybody to get hurt. So what distinguishes me, I suppose, is that I've had a lot of experience on the roads. And, you know, I've had some close calls, so it's not like this is theoretical. No.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much.
Welcome.
Well, Fred, do you have any follow-up questions for Mark?
No, I'm good. I appreciate your comments.
You're
Yeah,
welcome.
same here. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Very thorough, very concise. Appreciate it. And with that, I guess we will move on to our second interview. Thanks again, Mark. And our next up is going to be Cheryl Longinati, and I'll turn that over to you, Fred.
Good day.
Mark, Mark, I will move you back to the attendee side, and you're welcome to stay on and watch as long as you like, or on about your day.
But I would want to ask one question, which is how many candidates are there?
So we've got seven on our agenda. We're not 100% sure that all of them will show, so we will see.
Okay, fine.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment. Mark is moving back to the attendee side, and then I will bring over the next applicant, which is Cheryl Longinati.
Perfect. And Cheryl is saying she doesn't see where she can unmute herself, so we'll just make sure.
She will once she
Okay,
comes over to the panelist side.
Great.
She should be doing.
Okay.
Yep, I just needed to move you over to panelist, and you should be all set.
Okay, now I see. I couldn't unmute myself prior to that.
You're good, Cheryl.
Good afternoon, Fred and Eli. Can I
You
just jump in?
Yeah, you got the format right.
Okay, yes, I do.
Okay.
So I'm pleased with this opportunity to talk to you both. This is something near and dear to my heart, not just bicycle and pedestrian issues, but it's a part of our larger transportation system. And transportation really is the lifeblood of a community. It's how we get around. We can look across the water and see San Quentin. Those guys don't have transportation, and other things too. But really, transportation is about freedom and relating to each other, connecting with our bodies, connecting with our neighbors, and so on. What interests me about the BPAC is it's such a quality of life issue that we deal with. Our infrastructure is not quite as personal as our living rooms, but really, in a way, it is. It's how we get about our lives.
Hey, Cheryl, let's do this because we'll give you that as the opening statement, and then we'll go into the 4 questions, and you get 3 minutes each for the questions, which I think you just kind of started to address. But what is it about the committee that interests you? So you can dovetail off what you just said.
Well, I think a safe and comfortable bicycle and pedestrian network of routes is really important for quality of life. And I looked up a statistic today, and the statistic was that 1/5 of people over age 65 do not drive. That's a fair proportion of people. And they're making fewer doctor's appointments, fewer shopping trips, fewer social visits. So they're really at risk of isolation. And when we improve our bicycle and pedestrian network, improve life, not just for seniors, but I think even for everyone, and for kids who learn independence by being able to travel by themselves, and for the parents who don't have to be on call all the time to drive them places. I know that riding my bicycle as a kid was really a way I learned a lot of independence. And I think it's critical to, really important. And it's, as you know, it's dear to my heart. I'm really ahead of myself, but I'm going to go on to challenges because I have a lot to talk about there. You know, our biggest challenge here in Corte Madera and all of Marin is our topography. We have hills to go up and down. We have creeks to cross. But also, you know, our street grid was originally developed in a piecemeal fashion, but primarily with automobiles in mind. And we see that with, you know, we have telephone poles in the middle of sidewalks. I mean, it was an afterthought, if a thought at all, about how people might get around by walking or biking. So now we have to retrofit, and that's hard to do. But I think if we focus on priority areas, we have made progress in this town. This town is really well positioned because of the railroad right-of-ways. We're really well positioned to be a real bicycle and pedestrian friendly community. But let me go back to my priority areas, because I think that's something to keep in mind. Crossing 101 has been a huge issue for decades. And we can only keep working on that because it's going to take a lot of work to get that addressed. But I also think of it in terms of the intersection at Madera and Tamalpais, because the public library is right on the south side of Tamalpais there. And I would like to see that intersection to be safe for a 10-year-old kid to go to the library on their own. You know, I just think that a community should be able to provide that for their children. We also have to think about getting to the SMART train and the ferry terminal, because having a safe and comfortable way to get there without using a car would be a huge asset, I think, to this community. And there's progress being made on step by that, but I think from Warnham to up north to Industrial Avenue is still really dicey, and there isn't any specific plan yet for that. When we make it easier to bike and walk to our shopping centers, we make it easier for the employees, which I think will improve service, because I know those business owners and managers have trouble hiring people, partly because of the cost of, people have to commute so far. If we can make it easier for people to get there, it'll help the employees and help us, because we won't be wandering around and looking for a sales associate. And also shoppers, you might not know this, but people who shop by bicycle buy more. They make more trips. And every time every time I go to the grocery store, I always buy things that aren't on my list. So it'd be a real advantage to us for our sales tax money and to the shopping centers if we make our shopping centers more accessible. And as I mentioned earlier, I think Corte Madera really has an opportunity to brand itself as a bicycle and pedestrian friendly town. I've just realized the other day that, like, kids at Tam Ridge, if you're growing up in Tam Ridge, you could go to Neil Cummins after you cross Tamil Vista, go to Neil Cummins on a multi-user path and on the canal paths. You can go to Redwood easily, and you would just have to cross Doherty, one major street, to get to the middle school. I mean, that's a huge thing, I think, for families in this community. And I don't think Tam Ridge is alone in that. If we did a map, we could see a good part of Corte Madera, you wouldn't have to cross a major street. And we have an opportunity, I think, with the plans for the town hall and town park and community center to provide better bicycle parking and make bicycle parking visible and attractive. And that would be part of town branding, I think, that would really enhance our town. I'm still ahead of myself.
If you want to, did you want to wrap that up and we go to the third question?
Yeah, the third question was disagreements.
Yeah, tell us
Sure.
your style for dealing with disagreements in a group
Well,
setting and providing an example.
I'm generally curious about how people think, and I think that gives me and I'm also I think I'm fairly patient, and when I see a disagreement, I like to ask questions and hear people out. When I lived in Chicago, I volunteered as a mediator for a group called Neighborhood Justice, and we took referrals from misdemeanor court and tried to work out resolutions to those. So I've had a lot of experience with this. I found that people often stake out a position and they're adamant about their position. But if you start asking questions and have them consider what their longer term interests are, you can sometimes find common ground. And I actually was in one of my most memorable mediations was with a pair of folks who were from the housing projects in the city. And when they talked to each other, it was going so fast, I could not really understand. I really couldn't understand their dialect, but I made sure that they could understand each other. And by just doing that and asking the questions, we got through the process and came to some resolution. So I think I took myself out of it in a sense and just made sure we followed the process. So I think I'm fairly, there are exceptions, but I think I'm fairly good at doing that kind of thing. It's when my own values feel totally undermined and attacked that I can get off board, but I'm aware of that. And that awareness can help me stay in a right frame of mind.
Okay, all right, thanks. The fourth question is, what makes you stand out among the other candidates? What special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the committee?
I think I'm the only candidate, I may be wrong, but I think I'm the only candidate who's certified by the League of American Bicyclists as an instructor. And I've taught adult women what we call street smarts. And so that was we did some basic riding skills, turning, stopping, and so on. But it was largely about interacting with motor vehicles and where to be on the road and how to behave on the road. So I'm very familiar with that. Of course, you probably know I'm active with the Age Friendly Task Force. I am active with the Women's Club and vice president now, but was president for a couple of years. And you know that I have my Trishaw, Gertrude, that I ramble about town. Well, she's coming out of the locker soon because COVID's coming to an end. So I have a little push scooter, so I'm very aware of the condition of our sidewalks. I often use that when I need to get around for a short trip in a short amount of time. I think the BPAC is really a valuable forum to the town, particularly to the public works engineers. They can design following the standards and so on, but they need to hear from the end users. And I think Bob, as chair of the BPAC, has really provided an excellent forum for the public. I would bet we have, I don't know how it's been with Zoom, but we have good attendance at our BPAC meetings from the public. So I'm really proud to be a part of that. And I hope that because of my awareness of issues, particularly for seniors, that I think I lend a particular perspective, and that's what the BPAC needs, a variety of perspectives. So I think I can contribute and continue to contribute to that. And that was my closing statement. So You got it all, guys.
So you don't need 2 minutes for a closing statement?
No, I don't need that, but I'll take a question if you have it.
Hey, Eli, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you, Cheryl. You were very thorough and appreciate your time and your thoughtful responses.
Okay,
Yeah, I
All
don't have
right.
any questions either, but yeah, we appreciate your time.
okay.
Thanks, Cheryl.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Cheryl. I'm going to move you back to the attendee side. Oh, she left. Oh, just unsure the camera. Okay, I'm moving Cheryl back to the attendee side. And the next applicant on your schedule that I will move over will be David McPherson.
Perfect. Hello, David.
Hello, good afternoon.
Good to see you.
Oh, wait a second. You know, I usually have a screen behind me. So let me get rid of that and go back to none. And there we go. How's that? Much better.
You're good.
Perfect.
So
Great.
when are we going to get back to in-person meetings?
Were we thinking, what were we thinking, September or something, Rebecca?
Yes.
Okay, great.
And is OSHA in charge of that, or the town can make their own independent decisions? How does a town determine, or a city determine, you know, when it's safe to have public meetings?
I think we're following in large part just the county's public health orders. So we're going to let them kind of take the lead, and then any changes that happen at the state level with regards to Governor Newsom's executive order, which sent us into remote meetings, we'll keep an eye on how that might change. But we're still virtual for now, and we're going to be hybrid hopefully once we come back. So
Well, we can at least feel very proud of Marin County and its going on 89% vaccination rate.
yes,
And,
indeed.
it really makes me proud.
Yes. Well,
So do I have
at
the
4:30.
floor, or how does this work?
Yeah, I'll just run through the format real quick. So we're going to do 1 minute opening statement, then 4 questions, 3 minutes each, and then a 2 minute closing statement, and then it'll just be any follow-up questions that Fred or I might have.
Okay,
So
you guys might
pretty
have to prompt
straightforward.
me on the questions, only
No
because
problem.
I ran from a different meeting and it's not in front of me. But in any event, if you don't know, it was in 2008 that the requirement that the towns in California and cities had to produce a bicycle pedestrian master plan. So prior to that time, Public Works did not have and the town council did not have a BPAC. And so I had worked with Bob Ravazio in some capacity to get him to go overseas actually and go to the Netherlands to kind of look at their infrastructure and worked with a local group out of Mill Valley to do that. And so he and Jana Hale asked me to serve back in 2008. And that's how we put together the first bicycle pedestrian master plan. After that work was completed, it sort of shut down. And do I have to stick with this schedule?
But you don't have to if you want to. I think we can have it kind of.
I wanted to just kind of give you that background that then we went into sort of a limbo, and Bob and I rallied and got the town council sitting at the time to make us
David, I'm sorry, one second. I just want to say, Rebecca, I think we should probably still have the clock rolling, even if we're not holding to the exact format, just so that we don't give one candidate more time than everyone else. That wouldn't be fair.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Anyway, we were able to get the BPAC reformed again, and then eventually get it made into a standing committee. And so ask me the first question and I'll jump to that format.
Perfect, sounds good. And you'll find that they're all probably going to lead into what you wanted to say anyway. So the first one is just, I think exactly what you're getting into is, what is it about this committee that interests you?
Well, so it's everything that we've accomplished so far. I mean, getting the town, particularly at the time, Public Works was fairly resistant to adopting the complete streets resolution. We were able to get that done. And of course, working off of the master plan, getting all of the input that we got from a really involved population of citizens. I mean, we're so incredibly fortunate in Corte Madera that we have people that really care about not only the environment, but safety throughout the town in alternative transportation, as well as at the same time making sure that motor vehicle traffic is considered at the highest level. So we've accomplished a lot. And so my interest is continuing to do what we've done so far. That is make active transportation a high priority, making sure that the town council has as much information as possible, supporting our amazing public works and getting their grants approved, showing that we are, a worthy community to have that money invested from TAM and other resources, and then completing each and every one of the projects that are on the master plan wish list. Second question.
Great, thank you. Second question is, what do you feel are the bicycle and pedestrian related challenges facing the town, both presently and in the future?
Money. That's it. We have the political will. We have the citizens that want safe and effective pedestrian and bicycle facilities. I think that some of the main goals would already be completed by now if there was sort of unlimited grant money. One of my, and this may be question number 3, but one of my concerns for a long time, particularly since my daughter went to the Cove School, is making sure that we complete the multi-use path to the greatest extent possible from the Marin Montessori all the way to Warnham, so that we completely connect the bay side of Corte Madera to the west side of Corte Madera. And of course, if there's ever a possibility in the future of having a connection between the two shopping centers or thereabouts as a multi-use path that crosses the freeway, that would be fantastic. And of course, the golden unicorn of anyone involved in bicycle pedestrian infrastructure in Southern Marin, of course, is reopening the Alto Tunnel. Those are continuing to do what we've done, finding the money where it can be found, encouraging public works, making sure that the daily concerns about intersections, people feel like citizens who live here feel that they have a voice through the BPAC that will be heard by Public Works and the town council. That's why I want to continue doing what we've been doing.
Great, thank you. Our third question is, please tell us your style for dealing with disagreements in a group setting and provide an example if you're able.
People don't disagree with me. Eli, I'm a trial lawyer, and so I'm in combat every day with some personalities that, you almost wouldn't believe if you saw them, heard them, and see the way that they write. And historically, I just let it roll right over me and stay focused on the goal. So I think I have kind of an interesting track record in the legal community of making friends making colleagues out of attorneys who are opposed to me, and eventually getting them to see that I don't return insults. I don't make work where work is unnecessary, and just stay focused on the facts, the goals, and try and reach resolution and compromise wherever possible. So we don't, on the committee itself, we have spirited discussions and some disagreements. I mean, down to things as important but seemingly mundane as motor vehicle width. I mean, we've really debated the minutia of details when it comes down to repaving and restriping certain roads, and to what extent, 10'3" or 10'6" is necessary. And we've had spirited discussions on things like that and many others. But we always reach a consensus on the BPAC because we want there to be a fairly clear message of what we consider to be a priority when it comes before the town council, so that you guys can make a decision knowing that we have sweated those details. And so I think we've been very successful in resolving any sort of differences internally. And what a joy it is to work with Todd Cusimano and everybody at Public Works. They are incredibly supportive of any thoughts and ideas that we have. And they're brilliant at being able to say no when it's a no, even though it goes against what we would prefer to have on our own wish list as bicycle and pedestrian advocates.
Great, thank you. And then our final question before we get to a 2-minute closing statement. Question 4, what makes you stand out among the other candidates, and what special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the committee?
So I don't stand out amongst the people who currently serve on the BPAC, and I'm unaware, haven't studied anybody else, looked at any resumes about anyone else who is applying in addition to the current members. We're all committed, I think, equally, and we all prepare for the meetings. So I think I'm just, one of the crew. I guess the only thing that distinguishes me is that in the very, very few circumstances where Bob has not been able to attend as vice chair, I know what the rules of procedure are so that I can run a meeting. But other people could easily do that too. If Cheryl or anybody else wanted to be vice chair, that's not at all crucial to me. I just have had to learn the rules to be able to fulfill that function. So yeah, I think that's my response to that question.
Great, thank you. And now we'll just invite you to have up to 2 minutes to make any closing statement you might like.
Just reappoint me. That's my closing statement. I've enjoyed it. And I would continue to serve. I think is it a 4-year term? I'm not sure whether it's 4
2, I
years,
believe.
2-year term. Yeah, as I look forward, I wouldn't mind serving, at least 4 years, because some of these projects will certainly require the better part of 2 years and maybe even beyond that. And, should the current federal administration prove to be, well, we already know that they're going to be much more friendly to active transportation. And should the money ever come up again, I've got almost a 20-year history of working on reopening the Alto Tunnel. And so I know all the facts and figures and details backwards and forwards. I'd love to work with the county. I'd love to work with the town. I'd love to work with the state and federal authorities in whatever capacity I could to try and see if we could land enough money to make that reopening of the tunnel a reality. And that, 20 years ago, I thought that was a 10-year plan. And now, 20 years later, I still see it as a 10-year plan. I thought it would be done by the time my daughter was out of middle school. Now she's, of course, in high school. So that's what I'd like. I'd like to have you guys reappoint me, and I'd like to serve for as long as I can make a difference with the town.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dave. Always a pleasure. Fred, any follow-up questions?
No, thanks for your time and all the commitment you've done in the past. Appreciate it.
You bet, Fred. I appreciate your commitment to the town too.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and we appreciate your service.
Fine. Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you, David. I'm going to move you back to the attendee side now. And,
Thank you, Rebecca.
apologies for that ding in your closing statement. I think I malfunctioned the timer, but thank you for joining us. And as
Great. And next up will be
That's the
Tony
meeting.
Garza, and Fred will lead that one.
it should be moving now. Tony Garza should be joining me shortly.
Hey, Tony, you there?
Okay,
Hey,
there we
how
go.
are you?
Now you can hear me?
Yep.
See me? All right.
You got a copy of the format which should have been sent to you?
What's that again?
You got a copy of the format. It was emailed out to you. So we're going to allow 1 minute.
Yes, I did. Unfortunately, I didn't see it till this morning, but I've got it. I'm ready.
So why don't you go ahead? We'll give you 1 minute for an opening statement and go into the 4 questions.
Okay, great. Hi there. Hi to both of you. Wow, I started watching all the candidates here so far, and I've been on this committee for a while now, and I just, it's amazing. There's a great group of folks here, no doubt, and I think it's clear we all feel so strongly about the environment Corte Madera offers, and just grateful to be part of this town. So I've been a resident of Corte Madera since 2011, in Marin County since 2005. I come from Houston, really big cities with a lot of traffic and and virtually no pedestrian way of life. So it is just amazing, the difference, and it's so wonderful. Just a little more background of my family and where we are and such, because I think it's a big part of this committee. If okay, I'll just carry this into the next question.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, which is what about the committee interesting, but go ahead and roll with it.
Okay, so anyway, my family consists of 3 children. I've got 1 smaller one at Neil Cummings and 2 in high school. And my wife and I both work in the field of architecture in commercial and residential realm. So we can go on to the next question. Sorry.
So what is it about this committee that interests you?
So my volunteer involvement with the town began on the Accessibility Advisory Commission. I was brought on board at the tail end of a pretty massive campaign the town had with accessibility upgrades. But soon after I was brought in, the commission sunsetted, and I was offered the opportunity to be part of BPAC, and I jumped right on that. So what interests me basically is I feel comfortable discussing and looking for the solutions that tend to come up in this committee, whether it's new developments, how they're connecting to the existing bicycle pedestrian infrastructure, or a bike lane logistics, accessibility issues, wayfinding. These are concepts that inform not only the world I'm in professionally, but also have a huge impact on my involvement with the town, the schools, and walking and biking, etc.
Okay.
So that's I think I'm done with that one.
The next question is, what do you feel are the bicycle and pedestrians related challenges facing the town, both presently and in the future?
You know, one of the biggest issues I see, not only for bicycle and pedestrians, it's just a big issue all around, is parking and how it affects everything that's connected to it. The main issue I found is, my little son, he goes to Neil Cummings, and we're not far from town hall. So generally we walk to school, but it was a national bike to school day, morning time, rush hour. Some of the roads are double loaded with parking, which creates an otherwise 2-way roadway. It turns into a 1-way roadway. Then you have, youthful cyclists trying to navigate their ways through, and it's scary. It becomes scary at times. So, always in the back of my head is, how can this be better? What can we do? Does it make sense to have a bike lane here? What's going on with the sidewalks? Or is it safe to walk on the sidewalks? All these things. So I feel that's an ongoing challenge, and it will always be a challenge, now and in the future. And what I like about it is it's changing, electric cars, and then app-based driving and such. So that's what I see now. in the future, in my world, I'm always dealing with the changing code, evolving code issues or ordinances and such. So I don't know what the issues are going to be, but I like the changing and taking on that challenge to see how everything changes around it.
Thanks. Question 3 is, tell us your style for dealing with disagreements in a group setting, and please provide an example.
So disagreements in a group setting, I'm in a world of high opinions, big egos, and I have found, I mean, there's always going to be a difference of opinion, and sometimes it just comes down to two different opinions. Neither is right or wrong. It's just a different way of looking at things, and I see the best way to handle these is to humanize the process of the thinking, because the way I see it is you have two different points of view, and there's different ways that these ideas have been developed, and sometimes, you know, the communication, it's not the same language. So I like to just discuss them out, discuss the issues, listen to how these ideas came about, and in the process, I think the process is where the magic happens. You know, it gives the others an opportunity to better understand, but also help build whatever that idea is, become part owner of each other's ideas. And once you get to that point, I think the shared idea comes to the top. I don't know if that makes sense. So I was kind of rambling there, but at the end of the day, I think it's just different communication styles and bringing that to the top, you know, helping break that down so everybody can understand.
Okay, thanks. And it made sense what you're saying, by the way, definitely.
Good.
The fourth question is, what makes you stand out among the other candidates? What special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the committee?
Well, let's see. What I hope is the way I stand out is where I'm coming from, my point of view. I hope to just bring a different point of view to the committee. I mean, I respect everybody on this committee, and I'd love to hear how, you know, what they're coming through, what affects them. So I'm hoping my difference is that I have a young family, and I'm able to bring these ideas, the challenges that I see walking my kid to school or driving my older kids to school, and then what comes up with them, and then ideas that I hear from other families of the world that I'm in. So I'm hoping to bring that voice to the committee.
Okay, thanks. And then you have 2 minutes for a closing statement.
My closing statement, I think, again, I just, I want to express gratitude to the fellow members of this committee, and I'm grateful that I got to become part of this through default. But essentially, my goal is, you know, volunteer, provide to the town that I live in, make it better. But I see this is probably a little selfish, but I really enjoy the learning and the developing the skills that help make changes on a really big scale. This is a wonderful town, and it already has an amazing infrastructure of multi-use pathways, even just the little communities, the neighboring town of Larkspur, and there's just so much going for it, and I enjoy being part of that. And if it, you know, if it doesn't happen in this committee, I'll seek out another committee. But you know, I'm part of this town, and I want to continue to be more than just a resident.
Thanks. I think we are fortunate where we live. Every day I live here. It's amazing. I don't have any questions, and I appreciate your time. Eli, do you have any questions, follow-up questions?
No, I just want to say, Tony, I'm also an architect, so I appreciated the architecture analogies about high opinions and changing code and whatnot.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah,
yeah, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you, Tony. I will move back over to the attendee side, and you're welcome to stay on as long as you wish. And the next applicant I will bring over will be Kirby Bartlett.
Great, thank
Great,
you.
thank you. And I apologize to everybody. I have a cough drop here. I've got a little bit of a cold, so that's what you see me chewing on here.
Hey guys.
Hello,
Hey.
Kirby. How's it going?
All right. So I see you've got in today's COVID world, you have to explain why you might cough.
Right, exactly.
Is it just a cough drop? It's just a cough drop. I have a tickle in my throat. It has nothing to do with COVID.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, thanks for joining us. You feel clear on the format, or do you want to run through it real quick?
No, I think I clear on the format. I wish I was an architect. I'd have a leg up like the previous guy.
No special consideration for anybody based on their job or anything like that. But thanks for joining us, and you can go right ahead then if you're all set.
No, I guess I do have one format question. There's 7 people,
sure.
But how many positions are open?
So I believe 6 if the committee is going to stay the same size it is now, which is 7. Rebecca was just telling me this morning that I think under the resolution that authorized BPAC, it can be, did you say between 5 and 9, Rebecca? Was that right?
That's correct.
So it could grow or it could
numbers.
shrink. I don't think that's likely. I think, it's got to be an odd number, right? So we don't have split votes. And then we have 7 candidates today, and then Bob is the council appointed chair per the resolution. So he's not interviewing today, but he's still on the committee. So he's the additional number in addition to the 6 seats that are being interviewed for today.
Okay, because I thought we were doing a staggered thing and only some of us were.
We are. I'll let Rebecca explain the switch to staggered.
Thank you. Yes, I tried to explain that in my email, but it may not have been clear because this is.
Sorry.
We are doing that because we wanted to bring the committee into alignment with the other town boards and commissions.
Okay.
In order to do that, I polled all the committee members and asked who would be interested in taking on a 1-year term to start to initiate the staggered process.
Got it.
You were one of the ones who actually said that you were open to taking a 1-year term.
I look,
knowing that you would have to interview again in a year to interview for a 2-year term. So
I'm okay with that. Yeah.
We do have to appoint 3 people to a 1-year term and 4 people to a 2-year term in order to initiate the staggered term process.
Okay. All right. And I think I understand the process, but if I go over by 5 seconds and another one is short by 30 seconds, do I get some special dispensation?
No, but if you go over, you're going to hear a really long gong. That's going to.
Yeah, I heard that, but okay. All right, I'll start with my opening statement. A quick summary about me. My wife and I have lived in Corte Madera for 25 years, where we raised our 2 kids. I'm an active bike rider and a runner, which is important. I've been a member of BPAC for 8 years. I've been a member of Marin County Bicycle Coalition for 20 years. I currently ride about 25 miles a week. I've been a member of the Tamalpa Runners Club for 10 years. I routinely run in Corte Madera and the trails above. I run about 16 miles per week, sidewalks, steps, and trails. I make sure Pedestrian is part of BPAC. Yes, I scripted that one. Pedestrian. I organized the first ever East Corte Madera Bike to School Day, which became a tradition. Before the Cove School opened, these semi-annual events had an average of 125 students riding bicycles from East Corte Madera to Neil Cummins and Hull. Subsequent events over 6 years expanded across Corte Madera and Larkspur into neighboring schools. The biggest reward was seeing students make a habit of riding back to school.
Great, thank you very much. Our first question here is, and where the heck did my question just go? One sec, sorry. Trying to pull up Rebecca's email. Here we go. Okay, first question. What is it about the commission that interests you?
I'm passionate about bicycle and pedestrian transportation and making it a safe and practical mode of transportation. I see BPAC as a means to help make those improvements. I've always enjoyed running and biking, but my real passion for this topic started when my kids entered public school here many years ago. You see, I grew up in a town similar to Corte Madera, and I rode my bike everywhere, like everywhere. It was my primary, practically only means of transportation until I learned how to drive. My parents didn't drive me to school or baseball. I looped my baseball glove on the handlebars, put on my cleats, and rode my bicycle to practices and games. It taught me about independence and responsibility. I learned the importance of a bike lock. Yes, my bike was stolen, and a bike light in case it got dark. Then my kids started going to school here, and I was wondering, why are we driving them everywhere? Why don't they ride their bikes to school? There were two basic answers. From a parent's perspective, the idea of my child riding safely from East Corte Madera across the freeway to Neil Cummins or Hall scared me to death. Also, from the kids' perspective, no one else was doing it, so it didn't sound fun to them. So I asked my two kids, what if a whole bunch of other students, including your friends, decided to ride their bikes to school one day? Would you want to ride your bike too? And they said yes. And that's how the East Corte Madera Bike to School Day started. I set a date, I put up signs all over East Corte Madera and in school bulletins. I got the school principals and the superintendent to act as crossing guards at the scariest intersections. And yes, the scariest ones are at both ends of the Warnham undercrossings. We had a police, bicycle, and motorcycle escorts. And on the morning of the ride, the kids showed up in droves. It was a blast and they loved it. I ran this event every fall and spring for 6 years until the Cove School opened. My children now live elsewhere, but my passion for bike and pedestrian safety remains, which is why I want to continue to be part of the BPAC.
Great.
I know I have a minute left over. Do I get credit?
Gold star.
Does this carry forward?
It can if you end up needing time at the end. It certainly can.
Okay.
We want to make sure that everybody has the same amount of time.
Yeah.
Question 2 is, what do you feel are the bicycle and pedestrian related challenges facing the town, both presently and in the future?
Look, Corte Madera has some major automobile arteries that will always present a challenge for bikes and pedestrians. Highway 101 bisects the town, leaving only 2 routes to cross by bike or foot, and both have serious safety concerns as cars are driving across these routes too. Okay, there's a pedestrian overcrossing. I think only half of it's in Corte Madera, the other half's in Larkspur. But crossing 101 is probably the biggest long-term challenge for pedestrians and bikes in this town. Various pedestrian overcrossings, or POCs, have been proposed. I would like to quote Cindy Winter, a beloved bike advocate who passed away recently. She would, as always, say at our meetings, I never met a POC that I didn't like. Other topics, Tamalpais Drive. This is also a major auto and bike route with lots of pedestrians trying to cross safely and get to the parks and schools and shopping. The recent repaving and striping has helped a lot, I think, but the sheer amount of traffic on this road will always make it a concern no matter how much paving and striping we do. Magnolia and Tamil Vista, similar issues as Tamalpais. These are major auto and bike arteries with pedestrian crossing concerns. Paradise Drive, over where I live on the east side. I'm looking forward to seeing the improvements that are in the works here. If you're a biker, you've heard about Paradise Loop. It's a very popular bike ride, and the bikers come in droves on the weekends. Alto Tunnel. Opening this tunnel may be a pipe dream, but as far as pipe dreams go, it's a beautiful pipe dream. Sandra Marker Trail. Some access points to this trail from Corte Madera could use some improvements, which have been previously discussed in BPAC. Casa Buena and Meadow Sweet Drives. Don't forget about this neighborhood. Biking and pedestrian improvements have been requested by residents in this neighborhood for a long time at BPAC, right? They show up and they have legitimate concerns, and they're talking about them, and they feel like, they talk and we talk back, and they haven't seen improvements. Christmas Tree Hill. Don't forget about the steps. I routinely run to the top of Summit Drive and then along Corte Madera Ridge Fire Road. The steps in this neighborhood are essential, especially in the case of a fire. And some are in serious, serious need of repair, especially near the top. That's my list. I can't hear you. I don't know who's on mute. Am I the only one that can't hear you?
Nope, that was my bad. I'm sorry, Kirby. I was on mute and didn't realize. Thank you very much for that. We're going to move on to question 3.
You were trying to hide your cough, huh? You were coughing.
I muted to cough and then I forgot to unmute, which I do all the time. So our question 3 here is tell us your style for dealing with disagreements in a group setting. Please provide an example if you can.
All right. In my current career, I'm Chief Operating Officer of a venture capital firm. A key part of my success is my ability to manage through challenges. And with disagreements in a public setting, the critical parts of the solution I see are 1, listening, which I fear is becoming much less common these days. 2, restating the person's view, and in doing so, 3, verbally acknowledging the portions where you do agree. Once you have a framework of things you agree upon, it's much easier to tease out the areas of disagreement and then have a civil discussion. And my example of this actually occurred within BPAC. I took what appeared to be the bold position of being the only BPAC member to be against posting signs around the town reminding drivers about the 3-foot law, which requires drivers to give 3 foot of clearance when passing bicycles. This was not a popular position to take. I was sitting right next to Bob Ravazio, who, as you know, got in a major accident when he was hit by a car while bicycling. The town engineer ended the discussion by stating, "It's a good law, we should have the signs." No one agreed with me then, but that statement, "It's a good law, we should have the signs," stuck with me. The rationale for the signs correlated with the goodness of the law. They liked the law, therefore they wanted the signs. Fortunately for me, the topic of where to put the signs was raised at a subsequent meeting. I used this opportunity to restate my position using the steps I mentioned previously, and the BPAC changed course and agreed with me. In short, I started my case by stating, I like the 3-foot law, and I think it's a good law. It was a key point that I reiterated. I had heard them, and I was agreeing with them on this. With that addressed, we could now talk about the signs, which I pointed out was really about public education. After all, the 3-foot while passing sign informs the general public about a law that is applicable on all roads in California. Unlike nearly all of the road signs, the 3-foot message is not location specific. For example, a no U-turn sign is location specific because it informs drivers that they cannot make a U-turn at that specific location. It applies to nearly all other road signs, stop signs, yield signs, merge, etc. In contrast, the 3-foot law applies to all locations on all roads. In short, a permanent sign about a 3-foot law is essentially about educating the public. It's a public service announcement. So now that we've framed the discussion, the key questions are, what laws should we advertise? The 3-foot thing is good, but what about no texting while driving? Hey, there's a long list of really good laws. And next, how do we want to advertise these laws? There might be some less permanent and less costly options than putting a sign up, like posting on Nextdoor. And that's the logic that won the day.
Great, thank you very much. And our 4th and final question here is, what makes you stand out among the other candidates, and what special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to this committee?
Okay, I'm not an architect. Sorry about that. I am going to make 8 points, some of which are more important than others. I'll let you weigh the relative merits. So here they are. 1, as I mentioned, I'm an avid runner and a member of Tamalpa Running Club for over 10 years. You can find me on the levee, Sandra Marker Trail, and the steps to the top of Christmas Tree Hill. I run an average of 16 miles a week. I mention this because I've heard members of the community accuse BPAC of being solely focused on bike issues and not caring about pedestrians. When these accusations are made, I have been the only member of BPAC to respond by pointing out my status as a pedestrian. 2, I'm an East Corte Madera resident. For most of my time on BPAC, I was the only resident on the east side of 101. And I realized this brought a unique perspective that makes sure all sides of Corte Madera are being represented. 3, I mentioned previously that I was the chief operating officer of a venture capital firm. Well, I'm also the chief compliance officer and need to deal with all of the firm's regulatory compliance issues. I know I'm not an architect, but hey. I mention this because I appreciate that there are often significant rules and regulations to get anything done these days, including things like street improvements. 4, I'm a long-term resident of Corte Madera, and I plan to remain here for a long time. In fact, my wife and I are currently planning some home improvements, which are hopefully going to be approved by the building permit of Corte Madera Building Department very soon. And we're doing those to encourage our kids to visit us more often. 5, my son is a civil engineer. One of his internships was working at a local intersection for Gelati Brothers. He's now working for a tunneling company, but hey, I have a civil engineer in my family. How many other BPAC members can say that? 6, I bring pizza to BPAC meetings. For many years before COVID, I arrived at each BPAC meeting with 2 extra large pizzas. Hey, these meetings start at 6 o'clock. I know everyone is hungry, including the town engineers who work late because of this meeting. The pizza's for everybody in the room. I ask for nothing in return. It's just like, we're all volunteers here and we don't want to sit through 2 hours hungry. 7, besides my BPAC involvement, I have a history of other community involvement. I coached Twin Cities Little League 9 teams, Marin Girls Softball 2 teams, and Corte Madera Soccer 1 team. My wife and I believe in the value of community involvement. The interview schedule's bouncing around.
Yeah, I think we're having a little bit of an issue, but it sounds
Sorry,
like
there was a
you're almost-
bell that you still had a minute left and I don't know why. Anyway, please continue.
Just go ahead, don't worry.
I'll get it figured out. Please
Keep going.
continue. You have a minute left of question 4 and I'm trying to make it reflect that.
Okay, all right. Good luck with that. I'll just keep going. Let's see, my wife and I believe in the value of community involvement. Her participation is broader than mine, includes leadership roles with the Redwood High School Foundation as treasurer, Boy Scout Troop 43 as treasurer, Twin Cities Little League as treasurer. Yes, I realize there's a treasurer trend here, but she also co-chaired the Tam District High School bond measure and leads our neighborhood response group. I realize I sound like I'm bragging about my wife, but it is kind of how we feel about giving back to the community. Her activity is very broad, but mine is very specific. This is the thing I'm passionate about, and this is my only and primary community activity. And finally, I'm the only BPAC applicant, the only one that organized and motivated hundreds of local students to ride their bikes to school.
Great, thank you. And now we'll just invite you to have an additional 2 minutes to make any closing statement that you might like.
Look, I appreciate your time today. I've enjoyed being a member of BPAC for the last 8 years. I believe I've made meaningful contributions to the town of Corte Madera, and I hope I can continue in this role. Thanks.
Great, thank you so much, Kirby. We really appreciate your time. Fred, any follow-up questions?
No follow-up questions, but I do appreciate what you did years ago, getting kids to ride their bikes to the other side. I see kids ride their bikes all over the place now, and every time I do that, I'm gonna think of you.
Well, you live on East Corte Madera on the other side of Paradise, right?
Yeah, correct. And again, we walk all over the place all the time. And if we go walking 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I think it's kids coming probably from Hall Middle School. We just see them biking all the time. And it's a great thing.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not an architect.
Yeah, good. Our boys, our kids, or your daughter and my son, I think went to school together at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, they did.
Anyway, all right. Good chatting to you guys.
Thanks.
Great, well, thank you so much, Kirby. We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
Take care.
Thank you, Kirby. I will move you back to the attendee side.
And our next interview is going to be with Janet Furman, and Fred is going to lead that.
Okay, while I'm moving Janet over, I will figure out why the timer screen on one desktop doesn't match with the timer screen on Zoom.
Oh,
Because,
that's special.
so apologies for that. Janet Furman should be joining you momentarily.
Great, and it looks like Janet has been made a panelist. So Janet, you should be able to share your camera whenever you're ready.
There we go.
Hey, Janet, how are you?
I'm good.
You got the format that we sent out to you?
I do.
Okay. So whenever you want to get started, we'll go ahead and start with your 1-minute opening statement.
Okay. Well, my name is Janet Furman. I live on Chapman in Corte Madera. I've been a homeowner in Corte Madera for 43 years. Before that, I lived in Larkspur. I'm an avid cyclist and I'm an explorer. I would say I've ridden or hiked virtually every street in town. I have a keen interest in making my hometown as bike friendly as possible. I haven't been on the BPAC, but I've attended BPAC meetings as often as I could over the past 5 years or so. so I may be familiar to some of you. Outside of the meetings, I've had many exchanges with RJ in the Public Works Department by email, by Zoom call, in person, and with some of the other BPAC members. Okay, first question.
Yeah, what is it about the committee that interests you?
Well, Corte Madera is in pretty good shape regarding bike friendliness compared to other marine communities. I think there's a lot more that can be done. You can't accomplish much by sitting in the audience, as I've done. I've often been frustrated by having just a few minutes for public comments, and then the committee's not allowed to respond, even if I might happen to have raised an important issue. So that's why I would like to be on the committee. I have a lot of ideas. I would like to participate in the process of selecting subjects for the meeting agenda, so my ideas can be discussed by the entire committee.
Okay, thank you. The second question is, what do you feel are the bicycle and pedestrian related challenges facing the town, both presently and in the future?
Well, some of the things that I think make a town bike friendly. Number one, smooth and well-marked connections between segments of bike routes. Two, good pavement on the part of the road that's used by cyclists. Too often, bike lanes are full of cracks and potholes and debris. And an example of that would be Paradise Drive outside the area around Nugget Market. And I realized that there's a repaving project in the works. The third thing I wanted to mention was good signage. And some of these things I think can be fixed. Let me mention a few that I think that can be improved at low cost. One thing that has always struck me, and I don't know whether anyone else has paid any particular attention to this, but the start of the Larkspur-Corte Madera path is hidden inside a little parking lot at the corner of Redwood and Montecito. If you don't live in the area, it would be really tough to find that. Why can't we put up a couple of little signs directing people to the beginning of that pathway? Also, the driveway that is at the entrance of that parking lot isn't really suitable for bicycle traffic. It's got a big bump. It's not smooth. It should be like, if it's going to be accessed by bikes, it should be smooth, like an ADA type of ramp. I would respectfully disagree with the previous speaker, Kirby, about the 3-foot minimum signs being not being location specific. I actually think that they're very much needed on a place where motorists are least likely to yield 3 feet. That, like, for example, Corte Madera Avenue. More attention should be paid to smooth intersections between paths and roads. There are places, one that I would mention on the path along Paradise Drive where it crosses Verona Place. I was at the end of.
Yeah, if you want to finish that sentence or thought.
Okay. All right. I'm just thinking that could be smoother, and okay, I guess we need to move on.
Okay. Third question is, tell us your style for dealing with disagreements in a group setting, and please provide an example.
Well, I get along well with other people. Sometimes I have strong opinions, but I listen to other people. My viewpoint can be changed. I don't feel I always have to get my own way. There are some things that have come up with BPAC that I've disagreed about. Tamalpais Drive, I was disappointed when the decision was made not to put bike lanes in. I really felt that was the wrong decision, that cars should have been put on a road diet. And, you know, I'm okay with that. I listened to the arguments. The majority, the consensus was to make the road the way it is, and I'm happy to move on.
Okay.
Um,
Is there anything else you wanted to add to that question?
If I have a little more time, I'd like to continue the
Yeah, go
previous
ahead.
question. My number one issue that I would like to raise concerns bike traffic going south on Corte Madera Avenue, that meaning uphill toward Mill Valley. Bikes and cars mix very poorly there. And we all drive cars. I think we've all noticed that it's hard to pass slowly moving bikes going uphill on a narrow road with no shoulders. I think that there's a great solution that would not require widening the road. This is an inexpensive thing. Signage that routes southbound bike traffic to Chapman. That's my own street. I think Chapman should be a Sharrow, or inspired by Berkeley, call it a bike boulevard. And another one is, I see no reason why the bike path heading to Tiburon should end at Westward Drive when there's plenty of room to extend it all the way to Robin Drive out past the two schools out there. And I think that's really important for have safe route to school for kids attending those schools, as well as it being a very heavily used route for recreational cyclists. And I think that that is a case of parking being prioritized over safety.
Okay, thanks. And the last question is, what makes you stand out among the other candidates? What special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the committee?
Well, I haven't served in government before, but I've certainly been involved with the local community. I'm an active member of Marin Cyclist and Marin County Bike Coalition. I'm past president of Tamalpa Runners. I was the director of the Tamalpa's premier annual race, the Marin Memorial Day 10K. In my professional life, I'm retired now, but I was formerly the founder and CEO of an electronics manufacturing company, making specialty products for the entertainment industry. And I managed a staff of 75 people. So I have many years of management experience. I served on the Marin County Grand Jury, which, as you probably know, is a volunteer position. If a candidate is selected, you commit to serve for a one-year term. Most importantly, I'm interested in bike friendliness everywhere, not just Corte Madera. Over the years, I've communicated with and expressed my various opinions to the public works staff of almost every Marin town, as well as Richmond and Berkeley. I'm interested in what goes on elsewhere because I'd like to see the entire Bay Area be more bike friendly. I have a particularly good relationship with the public works director in San Anselmo, who gave me an education in the different types of asphalt and other paving materials. I come from an engineering background. I'm interested in details like asphalt. I often travel to San Diego, and I've been impressed with some of the bike innovations there that I think could be incorporated here. That's it. I can move on to the closing statement.
Okay, thanks.
Having attended many BPAC meetings, I've noticed that some committee members are more effective than others. I've noticed that some participate less. You might say some seem to occupy a chair and drop a comment or two here and there. I would not be that kind of committee member. I have lots of ideas of my own that I would like to see considered by the town. I get impatient when projects get delayed repeatedly. I do realize that not every delay can be resolved by complaining, but I promise, if I'm selected, to ask hard questions. Sometimes I disagree with priorities. My priority would be to make safety number one, safety for pedestrians and cyclists. And safety, I believe, should outrank motor vehicle issues like traffic flow and parking. Finally, just want to point out that the committee has had pretty much the same composition since I started going to meetings 4 or 5 years ago. I think it needs some new blood. I promise to be the person who will bring new ideas and shake things up, but in a polite and respectful way.
Okay. All right, thanks. Well, we appreciate your time. I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's it. I've said it all.
Okay, thanks. We appreciate your time. I don't have any follow-up questions. I don't know. Do you have any follow-up questions, Eli?
No, thank you so much, Janet.
Okay, Janet, thank you. I will move you back over to the attendee side. And then the final applicant that I will bring over to the panelist side will be Tom Knopfsiger, who will be moving over momentarily.
Hey, Tom, good to see you.
Hey, good to see you guys.
Hey.
How you doing?
Very good, very good.
Good, thanks for joining us. Are you all clear on the format here, or would you like to run through it real quick?
Yeah, I've read through everything, and yeah, I've never been interviewed this way or presented myself quite this way, but I am on a lot of Zoom meetings, but usually I'm not the center of attention, so this will be interesting.
Great. Well, yeah, if you're all set, then you can go ahead and start with 1 minute for an opening statement whenever you're ready.
Yeah, so I have been on the BPAC since I think around 2015, and got involved through David McPherson, and so I've been in Marin County since 2007, about 14 years or so. I'm an avid cyclist, and like I said, I participated in the BPAC since 2015. Also Safe Routes to Schools at the Cove Elementary for 5 years when my son was there. And now he's at Hall Middle School as a 7th grader and rides his bike every day to school from East Corte Madera. And so, you know, I have a lot of experience riding both road bikes and mountain bikes in the area, and do walk around town from time to time, but most of my walking is over in the neighborhoods of Mariner Cove where I live. So that's just a little background.
Great, thank you. We'll move into our first of 4 questions now, and that is, what is it about this committee that interests you?
Well, like I said, I'm an avid cyclist, mostly both road and mountain bike. And so I do spend a lot of time riding around town with myself and my son. And I also know a lot of people that ride around. And I like to be observant of what's available and what's not. And from the time, I mean, in the last 10 years, in some ways it amazes me how much has actually been done with the restriping of the roads and things like that, and the flashing lights that have been added. But there's always more things to work on, and we can get into that in a little bit. But what I enjoy about being on the committee is being part of the decision-making process, or at least the review process. Because on one hand, my opinion is usually, ideas of what is going to be worked on are fairly well baked by the time they get submitted or reviewed by the BPAC and have some public discussion. There, a lot of things are already pretty much in the works, and then we're reviewing and critiquing, what we see and providing some input, with all of our varied experiences on the committee on projects that are really already in the pipeline and already being worked on. So I do enjoy being part of that. I get exposed to a lot of information that the town and Public Works is working on that if I was not on the committee, I wouldn't see or be as involved with until I actually saw the stripes on the roads. So I do enjoy that. I enjoy hearing the public comment. And so I enjoy being involved.
Great, thank you. Our second question is, what do you feel are the bicycle and pedestrian related challenges facing the town, both presently and in the future?
Well, I mean, number one, it has to be safety, and probably first, this always has to be pedestrian safety, because they're the most vulnerable. Bicycles are also very vulnerable around cars and trucks. I commuted into San Francisco for a job in the financial district for 7 years. Not the last 4 or 5 years, but prior to that. And it was amazing how things had changed even over the 7 years while I commuted to San Francisco. So I think some of the challenges we have here are, really trying to figure out what is the solution kind of in our neighborhood over here, in front of Nugget Market. How does that get worked out? I'm one of the people that feel like the road should go, or the road should go on, I guess, a car diet. I would love to see it be one lane of cars and more bike friendly for especially road bikers going through. But I ride through there almost every day on my bike as well. And it will be interesting to see how, the new scenario will work. The wide sidewalk is great. I am concerned, as I've expressed in meetings before, that I'm a little concerned about, what happens then if you're a road biker, you don't want to be on the multi-use path going through that area. Separating pedestrians and cyclists, and that includes mountain bikers, I think is a very important, topic to be considered. And I think some of the other challenges is what are we all going to do about, how to get over 101 from East Cormadera to West and back. The new lines are very helpful. I rode over that for many years when you really couldn't see any lines. The new lines are helpful, but there still is a little bit of no man's land, especially on the town center side of the 101. The people going from the town center side to San Francisco, I always feel very vulnerable going through there. And I ride through there now. Well, the 10-year-old, 11-year-old, 12-year-old, now 13-year-old son. That's a bit of a shaky spot. So yeah, there's lots of challenges, but you just keep incrementally working through it. And I've seen a lot of improvement in the last 10 years, but it is all iterative, and budgets are a challenge. You got to be able to pay for the projects.
Right. Great. Thank you. Our third question is, tell us your style for dealing with disagreements in a group setting, and please provide an example if you're able.
obviously disagreements need discussion and notes need to be taken and considered. And then there needs to be follow-up and maybe some iterations of projects and things like that. Ultimately, I think that's the best way to handle any disagreement, is to maybe take notes, think about it, and then come back at a next meeting. And I guess there have been many examples of that, even on the BPAC, where we'll review a set of plans and give opinions about certain intersections. And then, sure enough, at the next meeting or the next meeting, there are usually some, mitigating, items to help with the discussion and move it forward. But no one ever gets their way, but it's a collective process.
Great, thank you. And our fourth question is, what makes you stand out among the other candidates, and what special attributes, talents, and abilities will you bring to the committee?
Yeah, I mean, I think mostly it's my experience as an avid cyclist and mountain biker. I have logged thousands and thousands of miles, both commuting into San Francisco and all the varying, intersections that you get between Corte Madera and the financial district. Mostly is where my commuting experience was. I've been, well, actually in times of COVID, I've been lucky enough to work from home for the last 4 or 5 years. And that seems to be working really well. So I don't commute now, but I also do it for exercise and, camaraderie with my son and other friends and things like that. So I'm always logging miles in the community. I don't ride road bikes much anymore, but I see road bikers all the time because I live on the Paradise Loop. And so let's see, I'm just losing a bit of it. Oh, I think it's my experience. I'm an accountant and CFO as a profession, and feel really lucky and fortunate and whatever else to live here in Corte Madera, and enjoy being in the area. I'm a business professional, and for large and small companies, things like that. And just really like being part of the community here.
Great, thank you. And now we'll invite you to make any closing statement you might like.
Well, I guess without being redundant or anything, mostly I enjoy being part of the public process. For me, being able to, volunteer my time to review and be helpful in something that I'm passionate about, riding bike around town, walking around town, observing kids, and my son is one of those kids. I rode to school with all the 6th graders for the first 3 months last year before COVID happened, so the 6th graders could learn how to ride and some of them had never done it before. My son used to ride to Neil Cummins from over here in kindergarten, but then he was lucky enough to go to Cove School where he had a 3-block commute, so he'd usually run over there. But when he went to 6th grade at Hall, I took as many kids that I knew in the neighborhood, and I would ride with them, each day, and let all the parents know. And it was fun to ride with kids that had never even ridden to Hall Middle School before, and, figuring that out. So I guess, to me, if I can lend experience to help the community, be safer and smarter and things like that, then I'm happy to serve if you guys need me.
Great, well, thank you very much. Fred, any follow-up questions?
Nope, I appreciate your time though.
Great.
Great, well, thank you so much, Tom. We
Thank you,
appreciate your
everyone.
time.
You bet.
And that was our last interview, actually. So we've now gotten a chance to interview all 7 of the candidates. So we really appreciate everybody's time. For those of you who are already serving on BPAC, we appreciate your service to the town. And to all of you, we appreciate your interest in continued or new service to the town. So I think, Fred and I both know that these are all volunteer jobs. And so we appreciate, everybody's eagerness and willingness to be able to invest their own personal time in helping make our community a better place. With that, I think we're going to wrap up the public portion of today's meeting. Fred and I now, as this nominating subcommittee, are going to deliberate privately, and then at the next town council meeting, which will be the third Tuesday in June, we will be, I believe, voting on the recommendations that this subcommittee makes. And so that's kind of a preview of the process there. Rebecca, did I miss any details?
Nope, that all sounded correct to me, and it is on the agenda for consideration, awaiting your decision for the June 15th town council meeting.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thanks again to everybody for taking the time to join us. We appreciate it.
Yep, thanks, everybody.